All right, so in this lesson, we're going to talk about numbers and KPIs and how to know if you're on the right track and whether a campaign is working or not. So we did talk a little bit earlier in this course about some high-level numbers to look at. And we talked about how you should look for a 1 to 10% conversion rate from prospect to meeting. Meaning that, if you message 100 companies, you should get, somewhere between 1 to 10 people to actually meet with you and move forward in the process. But now let's talk about some other stats that you can see earlier in the process. Basically some leading indicators that you can look at to see if you're on the right track or not. So aside from those high level numbers, that we talked about, such as 1 to 10% conversion rate, and ideally trying to get 2 to 5 booked calls a week, 5 to 10 would be amazing. What else can you look at earlier in the process to identify if you're on the right track or not? Well, when it comes to your email, you want to be looking at maybe 60 to 80% of the emails getting opened. Now, when you're using an automation tool, you can actually see those numbers as well. I would say 50% at an absolute minimum. If your numbers are below 50%, if less than half people are opening your email, then there's a problem with your copy, or there could be some problem with the tech side of things and your emails aren't getting delivered. Now, if your emails aren't getting opened and there's maybe a problem with your copy, it would either be the subject line or the first line. So you know how when you open up your email and you see all the emails in your inbox, you can see the subject line and then you can see the first sentence of their email? That's usually what we use to decide if we're going to open up an email or not. So if you're getting very, very low open rates, you probably want to look at maybe trying some different subject lines or changing up that first sentence of the email. So again, 50% at an absolute minimum, but if your open rates are between 60 to 80%, then you're in amazing shape and just keep everything as it is. Now, as far as your reply rates, that should also be maybe between 3 to 10%. And it could be even higher as well if you're really nailing this stuff and also personalizing your messages very well. But reply rates as in how many people that actually open the email reply. Now, again, you can of course see this manually, but even better is if you're using a tool that will show you this, which again, we'll show you in one of the upcoming lessons. So if you send 1,000 emails and 50 of them actually reply to you, whether it's positive or not, that's a 5% reply rate, and that's pretty good. So again, if it's lower than 3% reply rate, then there's probably something wrong with your offer or the messaging, or what actually was in the body of the email. And this is generally the same with LinkedIn as well, although usually LinkedIn it's a little bit higher. People are a little bit more engaged and don't get as many messages as they do on email. So with LinkedIn, you can expect the reply rates to actually be a little bit higher. And then one other bit is that, with LinkedIn, you have to send a connection request first. It's kind of like a friend request before you can actually message somebody. So that should be at least, 10%, meaning if you send out 10 connection requests, you should get at a minimum 1 person. Really it should be like 2, 3, or 4, so 20 to 40%, but at a minimum 10%. If you're connecting with a lot of people on LinkedIn, and you're getting less than 10% to actually accept your connection request, then it could be really one of 2 problems. It could be, first of all, that your profile doesn't really stand out or look professional, because if you have a very empty profile and it's not very optimized, a lot of people might not want to connect with you and add you to their network. So that could be one thing. And also the other thing too is it could be possible that your target market just isn't really on LinkedIn. Now, LinkedIn is basically the biggest business database in the world, so most people are on there. But depending on who you're trying to reach out to, it could be the chance that your target market just isn't very active there, which you would be able to see if your profile looks great, but you're just getting nobody to actually respond to you. And if that is the case, I'd still recommend doing LinkedIn. But if that does end up happening, then you're better off really putting most of your attention on the email side of things, because everybody can really be reached through email. But for most of you, that shouldn't happen. And also, this is easy to tell if you build a list and you see the first 50 people have no activity, like they haven't posted, liked, or commented in the last 30 days. Then you know that, okay, maybe this list isn't active on LinkedIn. You're looking for at least 10% of the people that you've sent a connection request to accept it. So let's talk about what happens after the lead generation process, and I'll give you a few bonus KPIs for what to look at in your sales process to see if something's wrong or not. So when you're setting up meetings with your potential clients, you should have at least 70% of them showing up. So if you were to set up maybe 10 meetings with different companies and only 1 of them showed up, then something's really off there. Maybe like they said yes to your meeting, but your message just wasn't great to begin with and they weren't really interested. Or you weren't reminding them. It's really important, to actually remind people of the meeting, especially if you set a meeting like a week or 2 out, they might forget. So always make sure, as a rule of thumb, if you set up a meeting, get their email and send them a calendar invite and send them a reminder a day or 2 before. That'll drastically increase your show rate. But also if you're using Calendly, like we're going to show you in one of the bonus lessons, then that'll actually do it for you. It'll create the calendar event, it'll send them reminders, it'll do all that stuff for you, and you won't even have to think about it. So again, make sure that at least 70% of the people you set up meetings with are showing up. Otherwise, there's something going wrong earlier in the process. And of course, people don't show up sometimes. Sometimes life gets in the way. Make sure to also follow up with those people as well and try to get them rebooked in. And the last KPI I'll share with you here is, your closing rate, your lead conversion rate should be at least 20%. And what this means is, out of all the potential clients you meet with, how many actually sign up and do business with you? 20% or higher is the best, meaning if you meet with 5 different prospects one week, you should be at least getting one of them to actually sign up and move forward with you. If it's a little bit lower, if it's around 15%, that's probably okay. But ultimately, look at 20% or higher. And this really comes down to your sales closing skills, but it also comes down to the quality of the leads. Even if you might be really good at sales, the leads could be bad quality, because it's one thing to actually get leads and get meetings, but it's another thing to get good quality leads and good quality meetings. So if a lot of the meetings you're having are with people that just aren't the right fit or they don't have the budget, then you actually need to look earlier in the process at your lead generation processes and see what you can optimize there. Because again, you could be thinking a campaign is doing really well because you're getting tons of leads and tons of people that want to meet with you. But if none of them move forward, and then it could be actually, not the case, and you have to really adjust things to get a better quality of prospects coming in. Try to shoot for at least 1 of 5 prospects moving forward and doing business with you. And that could be either with the quality of the leads, or that could be with how well you're going about the sales process, how well you're structuring those calls, and all those sorts of things. Another cool thing you can do is you can actually look at, all of the conversations that led to a booked call or a client, and even take all those messages and store them on a document. That way you can really have the data behind, what messages actually worked to bring us in a client. So remember, data can be your best friend. Keep an eye on the numbers. Hopefully those metrics give you a better idea for how to know if a campaign's working or not. All right, I'll see you soon.